We are back with the lovely Kimberly Ferguson. Kimberly, you're an author.
Yes.
Your book, Marketing. You tell us, what is the name of the book?
Marketing You, Be Strategic.
Why did you write this book?
So, if you couldn't tell, my passion is about career development. I'm very passionate about helping others in their careers. And one of the things that I found over the past couple of years just in my journey was that the faith-based approach, having God at the center of my career development was key. And so as I started to write this book, when you ask why I wrote it, I'll be completely honest. I wrote it to really market myself. So when I left corporate, and the first company that I pitched to, I sent a video proposal.
Let's pause there for a second.
Okay.
Because this is exciting. There are people listening, there are young people listening to you and thinking about strategy.
Okay.
You said you wrote it to market yourself.
I did.
Tell us about that.
So the first company that I pitched to, I sent a video proposal to them, and they loved me. Until we got on the phone. So they called me and said, hey, we're very interested. What's the name of your book? I didn't have a book. But it was something that I had been thinking about writing to go with my workshops. Just kind of something to go
Hold
along
on a second. I'm sorry. We got to get this. They asked you, after seeing your presentation, what's the name of your book?
Yes. That was
How
one of the first.
How important is that? In this, go ahead.
Yeah, so in this field, I have found that, especially, so if I were simply just doing the professional development piece and going out and doing the trainings, having a book hasn't really had the impact as much as it has for speaking engagements. So in that particular space, the company that I had pitched to, they were doing speaking engagements. They were doing programs for their staff. They had a program for women, and they were bringing in all different speakers to speak to women at that particular organization. So when they asked me that question, I was planning on writing a book, but for the purpose of going with my workshops. And when they said that, I said, okay. And then it happened again where someone else asked me about my book and I didn't have one. So that's really, I started to realize that in that space, that having a book to give to them would serve a couple of purposes. It would answer the question, what's the name of my book? But it would also give them some insight into me, into what I talk about, what I'm passionate about. It would give them some insight into my competencies, my knowledge, my skills, my abilities. So it would give them some insight into what differentiated me.
So they expect you to have a book in that.
That has happened. Yes. So I started working on it. In the meantime, I was still, doing the professional development, pitching, responding to proposals. And I wrote the book in a way that it could stand alone. It could go with my Marketing You, Be Strategic workshops, but it could also be used when I'm going out to different places to say, hey, here's a book. It's kind of like my business card, kind of like my calling card. And that's really how it came about. It started as, and I'm being honest here, it started as something to really market in my...
What does this book look like? You have it there with you?
I do.
On the other side. Yes. Bring it up. Wow. Kimberly A. Ferguson.
Kimberly A. Ferguson.
Thank you.
Marketing You, Be Strategic.
So, who exactly did you write the book for?
So I wrote it for professionals who are struggling in their career, whether they're looking for a new job, whether they're trying to figure out where they should be, or it could be someone who's in their career and is just looking for something different, looking for a change. So I wrote it, and it has a universal approach. So even I've given it to folks I've learned of folks who said, you know what, I need to figure out how to take my career to the next level. I've given it to those folks as well. So this book has really been around the idea of helping people in their career, not just young professionals, not just seasoned professionals, but it really has that universal approach.
What has the feedback been like?
Overwhelmingly positive. So, everyone that has read the book, that has come to a workshop and kind of heard what I talk about with the Marketing You, Be Strategic, it's been overwhelmingly positive.
How does anyone find you, Kimberly?
They can find me at kfergspeaks.com. That's KFERG speaks KfergSpeaks.com. They can find me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn as KFerg Speaks. Again, KFERG Speaks. And just about every social media platform, I'm KFerg Speaks.
Is this book for sale somewhere?
Yes, the book is available on Amazon.com. It's available on KFerg Speaks, BarnesandNoble.com, and I have quite a few other online retailers.
As an entrepreneur, what is your greatest challenge?
My greatest challenge has been, once people see me, and once they, people have a perception once they see you. So depending on the organization that I've gone to, I've walked into places where I've felt like I've had to prove myself. So I think that has been my greatest challenge, is showing people that, you know what, I have the skills, I have the abilities, I can take your team to the next level. And an example that I will use, when I first, probably about 5 months in to doing this, I went to an organization, and I walked in, and the looks on people's faces, it was undeniable that they were questioning if I was going to be able to do what I said I was going to do. And at the end, a woman came up to me, and I guess she thought that she was being kind, or that she was, I think she thought she was being polite, but she said, "You really surprised me." And that blew me away. So what I realized, when you talk about challenges, one of the things that I do up front is, when I go into a workshop, when I meet someone, I let them know what I do. And I let them know what my business does. And I kind of give them a little bit of my background, credentials, so that they can be comfortable that I am equipped to give them the tools that they need to be successful.
What do you do for those days when you fall down? How do you pick yourself up?
I encourage myself. I mean, outside of, of course I keep talking about prayer and, the word, but I encourage myself. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was feeling so incredibly overwhelmed just a couple of weeks ago, because I had taken on, quite a few clients for that particular week, and I had trainings, and they were asking for changes and things that I hadn't delivered before. So it was a feeling, because I get to that point where, not that I'm a perfectionist, but I need it to be right. And I need to go out and just knock it out of the park. So that had me feeling, overwhelmed, like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? So, sure. That had me feeling overwhelmed. And what I had to do was just kind of remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like I said, encourage myself.
What is one prayer, one mantra, one phrase you use during difficult times?
Wow. In my book, one of the things I say constantly, and it's, have faith. And I know I keep going back to faith, but that faith-based approach is what has helped me. So it's faith in myself, it's faith in what I can do, it's faith in my abilities, it's faith in God. So that's really where I go to when I'm having difficulty. I go back to the faith.
If you were to eavesdrop your parents, right?
Okay.
And I'll throw another one in there. Your parents and your husband.
Okay.
Telling a stranger or a new relative about you, what do you think they would be saying?
They would be talking about how proud they are of me, and they would be talking about, how much I give. And it's not that I give so much and that I don't take. It's not that at all. But, just how much I give to help others. And it's interesting, because when you talk about helping others, many think that there's not revenue, or there's not employment or a job around that. But there's so many things that we can do that helps, like what I'm doing with professional development, that allows us to help and give back and still make a business for ourselves. So I think my parents would be proud of my ability to have found that.
Let me get this. what I gather you're saying is that helping others doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be helping others in the context of receiving payment for it.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely. But I will say this, one of the things that I make sure that I do is that I'm giving back, so that I'm doing something for free, some type of free engagement, on a fairly regular basis. Not every day,
Right.
but really, right. But the effort of truly giving back is key.
Who are some women you admired in your life?
Wow. Well, of course, my mother would be one. I've had a number of inspirational women that have, impacted my life, from my sorority to, seeing figures like Felicia Rashad or Maya Angelou. So, when I think about women that have impacted my life, I've allowed women that I've known to pour into my life, as well as women outside of that, people that I didn't know, but people that I watched and I admired from afar, to pour into and to impact and influence my life and my direction.
I'm going to read some more pearls from you.
Okay.
Recognize the greatness around you. It's never too late to begin. Follow through and leverage your network.
Okay.
Why do you embrace these principles, and how do they serve you in your personal and professional life?
Well, it's never too late to begin was key because of my timing. When you think about what I was setting out to do, I was starting over. And I was in my 30s starting over, which, I know that's not old, but it was starting over. And I felt like, it's not too late for me to do this. But I see it even people that come to me that are looking to start businesses and looking to recreate themselves. It's not too late to make that happen. Leverage your network. When I'm talking about leveraging your network, I'm talking about taking advantage of the resources and the people to whom you have access. So think about the people that you know, the people that you're connected with, and how can you not only get from them, but give to them. And I think that's key. I think that in networking, it has to be a give and a take. I think it's very important that we give, but I think it's also fine for us to receive from that person. So if it's wisdom, if it's another connection, if it's a sponsorship, if it's a mentorship, whatever that might be. So I think, when I'm talking about leveraging your network, I think that is just so very important, especially talking to young people, recognizing the importance of who they're connected to. I think about not just in a good way, but also think about who you're allowing to pour into your life. Who are you allowing to be around you? The naysayers. It's okay to start to eliminate folks from your life that aren't moving in the direction that you're trying to move in, or that aren't encouraging you to move in the direction that you're seeking.
How important is that for people to recognize and adapt? To get rid of people who are not making a contribution to their life, or a positive contribution?
I think it's so important to be aware of who's around you, and if they're constantly pulling you down, then perhaps they're not the people that you need in your circle. I'm not saying that we need to be mean to anyone, but I am saying that be mindful of who you're allowing in your circle. And if you don't have those people in your circle that are encouraging you, motivating you, inspiring you, teaching you, people that you can learn from, because I don't want to just be pouring into their lives. I want people pouring into my lives as well. So there needs to be that mutual relationship where I'm giving and receiving, and they're giving and receiving. And if you find yourself in that draining relationship where someone's just taking, or someone's just pulling you down, or they're always saying what you can't do or what you won't do, it's time to remove yourself from that situation.
You're an entrepreneur.
I am.
Describe your feeling when you received your first contract.
Oh my goodness. I was floored. And the reason I was floored was because it was a city contract. It was big. And my company was just me. And the reason why, no, my company was me. And the reason why it was such a big deal was because when I walked out of the interview, so I had gone to meet with them, and I walked out, and I thought I did a wonderful job. But when I walked out, I'll be completely honest, I was intimidated when I saw the company that was there waiting to go in, because there were several men They're in their suits waiting to go in. And as
for
the same thing, for the same contract. And I went and I stood at the elevator and I said, well, I did a good job. I made it this far. They had 15 responses and they narrowed it down to the two of us. And yes, so that was huge for me. So how did I feel when I found out that they were signing a contract with me? Oh my goodness. I was floored.
Okay. Here you are, competing with others. Mm-hmm. But you saw several men in business suits. Mm-hmm. And you felt a certain way.
I did.
Why do you think they picked you?
Well, I know what it was, and I talked about differentiation before. I set myself apart, and the way that I did so was my flexibility. See, I had put together the proposal, they put together their proposal. The organization was looking to move in a different direction, and they asked me how flexible I could be. And right on the fly, I started talking about all the direction they were looking to go in. I went right with them. So I was able to move and adapt. And I think it was my adaptability. I think it was the flexibility. I think it was my willingness to be flexible that was key in that particular situation. But I found in other situations, when I've gotten other contracts, again, it's been that differentiation. The reason that clients, I have one organization that I work with that sends me out to their clients, and their clients ask for me. And the reason that they're asking for me, again, is that differentiation. I'm setting myself apart in what I deliver.
This brings me back to that statement, take advantage of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Bridge the two.
Okay.
Being adaptable, being flexible, and taking advantage of opportunity. When we spoke the other day, mm-hmm. I got it, mm-hmm. right? I got what you meant.
Right.
Don't look at an opportunity as something that can be you know what, you say it best. Why don't you tell us?
Okay. So I was referring to, in my career, when I was working at Dow Jones, I was given an opportunity to work on this particular product. And when it was first presented to me, I saw it as data entry. Like, why are they asking me to do this? And the more I looked at it and the direction that particular product was going, it made sense for me to get in. And it made sense for me to be adaptable and flexible and say, you know what, even though this might look like this right now, in a couple of months, it's going to look different. So I think the key is not looking at where things are right now only, but looking at the potential, looking at where they can go. I also think it's very important when we talk about taking advantage of opportunity, and you asked me about the flexibility, how I can tie those two together. I think it's really, when you talk about taking advantage of opportunity, you're talking about flexibility, because I might have had my eye on one product or one direction, but something else might be presented to me that leads me in a different direction, but still gets me to my goal. So there's multiple ways to get to our goal. There's multiple ways to get to whatever our definition of success is. So we shouldn't just say, okay, well, this is the only way, this is the only path, because the reality is there are so many different ways for us to get where we're trying to go.
What about for those who say, okay, that's all well and good because you're seasoned in this. You know it works. You know these principles work. Mm-hmm. But for those who say, well, how would I know that taking that opportunity or taking that chance is not going to lead me away from my goal?
Well, that's where we go back to the idea of define success first. What does success look like for you? Once you've defined success, the next thing we need to do is set those SMART goals that are in alignment with your definition of success. See, if I have my SMART goals, if I've already established them, when these opportunities come my way, it becomes clear that even though that opportunity might not have been something that I was looking to do, there's the potential for it to lead me to that definition of success and to lead me to that goal.
What are these SMART goals? What are SMART goals in the grand scheme of goal setting? What are SMART goals?
So when we think about setting goals, we need to be sure that our goals have 5 characteristics. One is specific. So we want to ensure that our goal is specific. Be very clear on what your goal is. We want to make sure that it's measurable. So what's the measure? How do I know that I've accomplished my goal? So that's what measurable is about. It's how do I know I got there? A is for attainable or achievable. You'll hear some models say achievable, some attainable, same thing. can I get to that goal? Is that a goal that I can actually achieve with the resources that I have access to, with the competencies that I have, with my knowledge, my skills, my abilities, with my educational background, with my work background? Do I have the ability to get to that goal? Relevant. So is that goal, and this is what answers your question, is that goal relevant to my overall definition of success? Is that goal relevant to, so when we think about taking advantage of opportunity, is that opportunity relevant to my goals? Is it relevant to my definition of success? And the T is for time bound. Set a deadline. So when I'm setting goals, I want to make sure that I hold myself accountable. The best way that I can hold myself accountable is setting a deadline.
What have you learned about yourself as an entrepreneur?
I have learned that, I've learned so much about myself, but I think one of the key things that I've learned is that I can't be broken. And I know that's easy to say, and I know that, and my husband will tell you, there are moments where I feel like we were talking about before, I might feel overwhelmed or even defeated, but the reality is that I'm not. That once I've encouraged myself and say, you know what, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to make it happen. So I think just being resilient has been key. That's something that I learned about myself, that I have the ability to bounce back.
I want to open up that question a little bit more.
Okay.
What have you learned about yourself as a black woman? A black woman doing business in America, in corporate America?
Well, it goes back to the example. I think I was a little, I left it a little gray. I didn't go exactly into perceptions, but I found going into certain places, there were certain perceptions of what I could deliver. And I think some of that was based on what they saw before them. Yeah. So for me, I think it's been very important to establish and set expectations from the door, letting them know what I can deliver, what I have delivered. See, the beautiful thing has been that I've had the opportunity to deliver to so many different clients that I have folks that will vouch and that will say, you know what, she came here and she turned my team around, or she came here and she delivered this wonderful training. So for me, what I've learned, it's the same lesson. It's being resilient, but it's also to make sure I set expectations from the door. I let them know what they're going to get, how they're going to get it. And then, very important too, is the follow through. So many times people talk about what they're going to do. I'm about to do this. I'm about to do that. Get rid of the I'm about to's and just do it. Take action. And so for me, I think that the key lesson that I've learned is, of course, in short, make sure that I'm continuing to be resilient and bouncing back from the no's, but also being able to take action. So doing what I say I'm going to do, following through.
With such a demanding schedule, how do you balance work with family and leisure?
See, that part I'm still trying to figure out. So, the one thing that I think has been really very helpful is, and I talked about this already, is the support from my husband. So, a perfect example was this morning. I had to leave out at a little before 6 o'clock to get to a client site because I had a training at 8 o'clock this morning. And so, my husband got the girls ready and, he did everything and got them off to school. So having that support is so helpful because I know that when I leave, everything is taken care of. So that's been key. I teach time management, which is funny because I say I'm still trying to find the balance. So just really trying to manage my time effectively. And sometimes that means being up late because I want to spend time with the girls. So I want to be able to get that family time in and help with the homework and do all of those things. So that might mean that you're getting an email from me at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Whose voice are you listening to in your head when things are not going right, when you're struggling even with your faith? You're struggling with what is in front of you. Who are you channeling?
Well, I know I gave you a quote before. It's an Emerson quote. I think I use a bunch of different quotes to kind of help me through those times. So, the Emerson quote, "This time, like all times, is a very good one if we but know what to do with it." And that I hear that often because it's the idea of I need to right now is a good time. No matter what is going on, right now is a good time if I take advantage of it. And, there I go again with take advantage of opportunity. But these are the things, I make sure that I'm reading so that, I can hear those things and I can remind myself of those things that I need to know.
I especially like that quote and like what you just said, because one of the things I've eliminated from my vocabulary, my life, is I'm waiting on God's time. Because I believe God's time is always now. Always now. There's no such thing as when God is ready. It's always now. His question is, are you ready? And the analogy I like to use is a stream that has fish in it. The stream is always there with the fish. It's when are you ready to fish? Anytime you cast your net or your line, chances are you will get a bite. The stream doesn't say, later I'm going to be ready for you, or so on and so forth. So I really believe in that.
And I like that a lot, because when I think about, not to plug the book again, but in the book,
Oh, that's fine.
In the book, I talk about faith and prayer and action. So, and the example that I give is so many times people say, I'm waiting on the Lord, or, and I think that's wonderful to have that faith, but it needs to be coupled with action. Yeah. So it's wonderful to say, I know I can, but if you're not taking the steps to make it happen, you can know you can all you want.
Yeah, I think if you put yourself in the mindset of I am waiting, to me you will always wait.
Right. As opposed to taking the action to get there. Absolutely.
Describe the most humbling experience you've had as a educator, developer, trainer.
Ooh. So it had to have been when I was working at the school. So working with the students there. And it's interesting that you asked me for the most humbling experience, because the beauty of working at the alternative school was that I was able to see I could see the effects of what we were doing many times. And I've had students that have reached out and said, in fact, quite recently, I had a student reach out and say, what you all did for us there has really shaped my life. And for me, that was huge. And for me, that's humbling, because it's what I was doing was what I was passionate about, but it was so much more than that for them, and it made so much more of a difference. And I would dare to think that what I'm doing, even in this arena with professional development, is having that type of impact, but I don't get to see it. So it was very humbling to actually hear a student who had gone through the program come back later and say what an impact we had had on them.
What did that particular experience teach you?
It taught me that you never know who's watching. You never know what impact you're making, just because you, and I think it's key, because when I say you never know who's watching, that student wasn't just talking about what happened in the classroom. She was talking about so much more than that. And I think for me, you have to be mindful of what you do, what you put out there, how you're presenting yourself. You have to be mindful of your brand. And that experience taught me that it's so important to ensure that the messaging that you're putting out there is consistent with your behaviors, consistent with what you're saying and doing, and consistent with the action that you're taking.
I couldn't help hearing the word brand. Tell us a little bit about that, managing your brand. How important is that?
Oh my gosh. We're talking about so many things that I think are important. Brand management is key, because we have to manage perceptions, right? Many times I tell folks that, I tell my little one, perception doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what those little girls think, but I tell adults, in the workplace, in the marketplace, perception matters. So we want to control that perception. How do we control that perception? By controlling our brand. How do we control our brand? By ensuring that my behavior, just what I was saying before about your behavior, your words, your actions, the things that you say you're going to do are all consistent. What I'm doing on social media needs to be consistent with what I'm doing in the classroom. So everything that I'm packaging up, because I'm my brand, has to be consistent.
When have you been most satisfied in your life?
I've been most satisfied. I mean, there's two things that are very satisfying for me, and one is my family time. Just having that time, vacationing with my family, having that quiet time just to spend with my family. So that's satisfying. But when we talk about career, what has been satisfying to me is creating a program and bringing it to fruition. And then, getting the reviews afterwards from folks that say, hey, this was great, this was wonderful. So that to me is satisfying when I create something and it's successful.
You are in the education environment,
Mm-hmm.
corporate America, nonprofit organization. Which is most challenging for you?
I would have to say, oh, wow, it varies, but I would say corporate environments have been challenging, and only because, again, it's their vision. So it's very difficult, I want to make sure that my vision is aligned with the vision of the organization for which I'm working. So that alignment is key, but also the ability to make change, the ability to create. And I felt like in that environment, and this is just for me, and in many corporate environments it's not so, but for me, I felt like a lot of that creativity was stifled. And I felt like my passion I wasn't able to do all the things that I wanted to do, and I wasn't able to make happen those things that I wanted to make happen.
Yeah, I'm curious, especially for those who are thinking about getting into this particular field.
Okay.
When you're in a room with executives and upper management, and you know that these people are qualified in their own right and they're good at what they do and so on, here you are coming to train them. Is it sometimes intimidating? How do you deal with that?
Well, they brought me there for a reason. So I keep that in mind. And, in the beginning, would I say that there have been times where I was intimidated? Absolutely. Because I'm walking in and it was so new to me. But now I'm remembering they brought me there for a reason. So I remind them of that. And the other thing that I encourage them to do, and I think I might have touched on this slightly before, is I get folks to think about what it is that they need to get. So everybody needs to grow. Everyone needs to develop. And that's what I remind folks. Even if you feel like you are a number 9 in that particular area, you're doing great, there's still that room for growth. And so I remind them of that. And that has helped me in those settings. I have an organization that I'm going to in 2 weeks that I went to this time last year and training their management again. And that was the thing. It was everyone in there was leaders. They were seasoned leaders. But I just reminded them, all of us have room to grow and develop.
What is your greatest weakness?
My greatest weakness is saying yes.
Saying yes?
Yes.
For those days when you don't feel like getting up and doing what you have to do, who or what gets you out of that mindset?
I have to say my little ones, because they're watching. So I have to be mindful of the fact that they're watching. They need to see mommy, get it together and get out the door. So that's my motivation on those days where, it's a little bit difficult to get going, where I feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing this today, which I have to say, with the training piece of what I do, it's rare that I say, I don't feel like doing this today, because I have such a ball when I get there and I get in the classroom. I have so much fun.
If there's a cause you strongly believe in, what would it be?
I'd say, education and educating the at-risk youth, at-risk population. I think that's so key. I think that in working in that field, what I found was students, and I'm going to say this, students were thrown away. So students were basically told that you can't do it, you won't do it, you won't succeed. So working in that field was so important, and I encourage anyone who's looking and thinking about going into education to think about that population, because they were wonderful. And yes, we had our challenging days, and yes, we had our tough moments, but the reality was that was the most rewarding experience, to be able to pour into those lives and see the fruit of our labor.
You mentioned opening a book and reading as a form of improving oneself. You've written a book yourself. I want to take you somewhere hypothetical. If you had to go to a favorite place to relax and take your favorite book, your favorite drink, your favorite music, where would this place be? What would you be reading? What music will you be listening to?
Oh my. So this isn't too hard, actually.
And what would you be drinking? I forgot that one.
Okay, so I would, you're going to laugh at all of my answers. So I would be on the beach by myself.
By yourself?
Yes, by myself on the beach, drinking Welch's white grape juice. It's my favorite. What would I be reading? Well, you're going to think that I'm just saying this, but I want to read your book. And I started reading it. Yes, I started reading it today, and I want to read that. As I'm going through, I'm getting a copy before I leave today.
Thank you.
But something inspiration, something motivational. I wouldn't be reading anything that would be too hard to swallow or to digest. So it would have to be something that were motivational, uplifting. A book of Nikki Giovanni poems might be it. So it would be something uplifting and inspirational. And what would I be listening to? I would be listening to Jill Scott.
Jill Scott?
Yes.
Oh, one of my favorites too. When are you most happy?
When I'm doing what I love.
What are you most thankful for?
My family.
Ah. What advice would you give to young people considering going into business for themselves?
I would strongly encourage them to do their homework. And absolutely, yes, do your homework, research, whatever it is you're looking to go into business for. And how do you do your homework? It's not just about reading, which is important, but it's not just about reading. It's getting in touch with people who are doing what you're interested in doing and having a conversation, asking them to maybe mentor you or even sponsor you, depending on who that person might be. And then I would encourage them to, I'm going back to what I said before about self-assessment. I would encourage them to assess what are the things that they're good at that would enable them to be successful in that particular endeavor. So taking a look at the strengths and what strengths they could bring to that, but also looking at what lies in the gap. So this is where I am. This is where I'd like to be. What do I need? Is it additional education? Is it more experience? What is it that I'm missing? So I would encourage them to do those two things. Figure out what's missing by self-assessing, but also talk to someone who's doing what it is they're interested in doing.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Why are these questions funny to me? My 15-year-old self, I would say, what's interesting? That whole take advantage of opportunity piece, which we talked about before, that's been what I've used to encourage other young people taking advantage. So I would say, just be open. I would tell myself, be open to the possibilities, because there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many possibilities, and you don't want to limit yourself.
Last question.
Okay.
What makes you laugh out loud?
I'm funny, so I'm just thinking. Sometimes I make myself laugh, but I think I was talking about my husband before, and we just spend so much time just laughing. So sometimes I'll just be driving along and I'll think about something funny that's happened at home, and I will start laughing. I will. So I think it's those things. I think it's those personal moments, those the inside jokes. Those are the things that make me laugh out loud.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for sharing your time with us and sharing us so many pearls of wisdom. And I hope I was able to twist this gem a little bit and expose the various facets of Kimberly Ferguson. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to reading your book, and I'm looking forward to your next visit to CWS. Perhaps CWS as it is on Sunday afternoons, where you can speak on something specific.
Nice.
All right.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Good night. And this is Selwyn Collins saying, thanks for listening. Good night. Fear not what fear whispers to you. Fear your obedience to it.